All right, so the truth is, we really have no idea if a trend is ever going to continue or not. Like, for example, whenever I bet on the anonymous player prop betting app that does not sponsor me yet. Hey, make sure y'all like and subscribe. I'm working on some things behind the scenes right now, and all the numbers as far as views and subs is actually really important right now. So I just wanted to get that out there. I appreciate the support. But anyways, when I do place a bet on the anonymous player prop betting app that doesn't sponsor me, so I will not say their name, I never know how to go about it, right? Like, let's say, for example, I see a player has hit the under 5 games in a row. My brain tells me, oh, well, I should just bet the under again. He's been playing terrible. But then my heart tells me, well, the law of averages will tell you if he just went under 5 games, he's bound to go over. And the truth is, there is no science behind it. There's no rhyme or reason. And we have no idea which direction the trend will continue. That being said, I did some scouring over the stats of the Miami Heat players over the first half of this season, and I'm going to take an optimistic approach when looking at these stats just so we can have some feel good going forward after the All-Star break. And the other reason I wanted to do this is because yesterday's video, I kind of talked about Erik Spoelstra, and I discussed the 4 most inexcusable issues that he's had this year. So we were a little bit negative. So today, I want to try to come with something positive. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is Tyler Herro, and I believe that he's going to have a bounce back. Because prior to the All-Star game, he was in a little bit of a slump. Now, not a ton, like it's not like he was playing terrible, and he literally dropped 40 points in his final game prior to the All-Star break, even though the Heat lost to a heavily depleted Mavericks team. That was not Tyler Herro's fault. But regardless, Tyler Herro is obviously having an awesome start to this season, although he did get in a little bit of a slump over the last couple of weeks. The numbers that I pulled up for him is his 2024 stats, so basically the first game of the season up until December 31st. And in those games, he shot, almost 48% from the field. But the big number here is 41% from 3 on nearly 10 attempts. And he was averaging, 24 points per game, about 6 boards, 5 assists. So his overall numbers were great, but it's that 3-point efficiency that I really want to pinpoint here, because 41% on 10 attempts is ridiculously good. Now, we know that wasn't super sustainable. You did expect some sort of drop off after that, and that's kind of what we got. Because since January 1st and on, so basically 2020, the calendar year 2025 now, Tyler Herro went from 41% from 3 to 34% from 3. So that's a 7% drop off from the 2024 calendar year this season to the 2025 calendar year. And that's a major, major drop off. Now, the rest of his numbers still are pretty similar. He's still averaging 24 points per game. He's actually up by about an assist per game, still getting you 5 rebounds, and he's at 45% from the field, which is just, a 2 percentage point drop off. But it's that 7 percentage point from 3 that is really drastic. And if you've been watching these games, the eye test has been able to show you that he is struggling shooting the ball from 3 of late. Now, like I said, it's expected because you expected him to have some little bit of a drop off. But the reason I'm having optimism about this is because the law of averages going forward, I do expect it to even out. I think we've seen the highs of the highs and now the low of the lows. And he'll probably end up finishing the rest of the season averaging close to 39% from 3, which on high volume is very, very good. And I do think him winning the 3-point contest could be a huge confidence booster. Because a lot of times we've seen with guys over the years, whether it was James Jones or Daquan Cook or even Jason Capona with the Miami Heat, when these guys won 3-point contests, it ended up being a bit of a curse. And afterwards, they couldn't shoot as good. So I'm hoping with Tyler Herro, maybe it's the opposite. He kind of went into the All-Star break shooting not all that well, and maybe now that he won the contest, it can have the reverse effect, and now it can boost his 3-point percentage back up to what we're used to seeing. And I think it's something that is desperately necessary for this Miami Heat team, because right now he's really the only one shooting the ball consistently. He's really the only reliable shooter in general outside of Duncan Robinson. I mean, Hayward Highsmith percentages have been good this year, but obviously he's not even in the rotation every night, and he's not a high-volume 3-point shooter when he is. And the Heat's 3-point shooting, which is obviously critical in today's day and age, it pretty heavily relies on the back of Tyler Herro. I mean, the Heat are currently 14th in 3-point percentage, and again, most of that is because of Tyler Herro. So I do think he'll get back to a higher percentage once we get back from the All-Star break. And I just think in general, now that Jimmy Butler's gone and that whole situation, they're able to kind of move on from. We're already seeing Tyler Herro take on more of a role as a leader. And I think that's very important for this team going forward, not just this season, but for seasons to come. We're seeing Tyler Herro. He had a few interesting quotes during the All-Star media sessions. One of the things he said is that this Heat team is not contenders right now. He acknowledged that. And truthfully, as a Heat fan, I sort of appreciate the realism because we had Jimmy Butler for all these years, guaranteed a championship every year. And I also appreciated that about him because I think Jimmy stating that as the captain of the team at the time helped instill confidence in a lot of guys. And it really showed how much confidence Jimmy Butler really had in himself. And I mean, the facts would tell you that while Jimmy Butler was on the Heat, they kind of were contenders every year because they got there a couple of times. So maybe Jimmy wasn't lying. But Tyler Herro, I like the fact that he is showing some realism now and showing that they're not contenders. And I think it's important maybe for the front office to hear publicly as well, because I do think year after year, the front office tricks themselves into thinking they're contenders or thinking that they have enough, even when they're close to contentions. And what that's doing is it's prevented them from adding pieces to get you over the top. So I think now having Tyler Herro, the guy that is kind of going to be one of your captains going forward along with Bam, I think having him say that publicly that we're not contenders should kind of make the front office look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we need to do something to improve this roster. Now, Tyler Herro wasn't showing no shade because he gave a lot of love to the young guys and basically just said, hey, we're in a little bit of a developmental stage now. I love what we've been getting this year from Jovic and Kel'el Ware. So I really like the way Tyler has handled this situation with regards to him sort of becoming a vocal leader. He also mentioned the whole thing about wearing number 22 again. He was asked if it's okay that Andrew Wiggins kind of took Jimmy Butler's number. And Tyler Herro has shown nothing but respect to Jimmy Butler, which is something that I also really like to hear. As a leader, it doesn't make sense to kick a guy on his way out. But Tyler Herro has constantly said, Jimmy was a great teammate. Jimmy's my guy. Jimmy was a great leader. And he said the same thing here, while at the same time also saying, hey, Jimmy was a great leader. I appreciate everything he did here. But considering the way things ended, I think it's okay to wear number 22 again. And I kind of like that from Tyler Herro as well because he's showing respect to Jimmy, but at the same time saying, hey, like, you didn't rock with us. It's not cool, And we got Andrew Wiggins here. I'm gonna support Wiggs, a guy who's worn 22 his whole career. I'm going to say it's okay because if I say it's not okay, now that's like Herro's throwing Wiggins under the bus. So I really like the way he handled that question as well. And then the last kind of comment that's got a lot of media coverage over the last couple of days is when Tyler Herro said that they have clarity now. He emphasized that multiple times. The unfortunate part is, and I mentioned this at the beginning of yesterday's video too, is that Tyler Herro said the same thing once Jimmy was traded. And they're still currently winless since the Jimmy Butler trade officially happened. Unless you count the game versus Philly where he was traded mid-game. They won that game, and now they've lost 4 straight. But maybe they still need a few more games to gel with the new guys, and then hopefully they can go on a run. So that's just another reason I'm optimistic going forward. Speaking of the new guys, I'm going to kind of go into my next point here, which is I believe that Andrew Wiggins will get adjusted very soon. Because, of course, at the time of this recording, he's only played 2 games for the Heat. They have not been good. He's shooting 29% from the field, 23% from 3, only getting you 12 points per game. Obviously, those numbers aren't great, but the reason I have optimism that going forward he will be better is because look at his 3-point numbers since joining Golden State. He shot 38% his first season, then 39, then almost 40, then 36, then 37, and even beginning this season, he was at 38%. So that 23% that he was at the 2 games in Miami, I don't expect that to continue. For his career, I think he's like a 36% three-point shooter. But obviously, since joining Golden State, he's been much improved. And I do think he'll get back closer to those numbers. If we're able to get 39, 40% from Wiggins, that would be best case scenario. But I think even if he was able to shoot around 37% on 5 to 6 attempts per game, which is kind of what he's been doing, I think that could be a huge help to this team because Jimmy Butler was shooting, 30% on like 1 or 2 attempts. He really wasn't providing you that spacing. And while the Heat certainly aren't better offensively or defensively with Wiggins over Jimmy Butler, I do think Wiggins' ability to shoot the 3-point shot and at a much higher volume than Jimmy does, it does add another dynamic to this Heat team that can help them offensively because they have struggled offensively all season, needless to say. So I do think Wiggins will kind of get more comfortable, and we'll see his percentages go up as he gets used to the team. And then I guess if you want to mention the new guys as well, Davion Mitchell has been pretty good in his first 2 games here, and Kyle Anderson had a really solid second game with the Heat as well. He looked like a guy that had a smart IQ, was able to control the pace, and those are things the Heat can use as well. So my second main point is Wiggins getting adjusted, but I guess to make it more broad, you can throw in the other new guys too, and once they get some time to actually gel, I am optimistic that this Heat team can go on some sort of a run to maybe give themselves a legitimate shot at being the 6th seed. The next point that I want to talk about is Terry Rozier and Jaime Jaquez Jr. And my point for this basically says that they can't get any worse. That's my reason for optimism here, because there's no way that they could be any worse than what they have been this season. Again, maybe they can be worse. Who knows? But, I mean, it really wasn't that long ago that Terry Rozier was looked at as a solid player for the Heat. I mean, even if you go at the beginning of this season, if you go from prior to December, that's when we were calling him and Tyler the starting backcourt. We were calling them the TNT backcourt because, Tyler and Terry, they were explosive. That was this season that we started the TNT backcourt, and that's because Terry Rozier was actually playing pretty well. In his first 15 games, he had 12 stars. He was the efficiencies overall weren't great. He was only 40% from the field, only getting you 13 points per night. But his three-point percentage was 36%, which is also not good, but it's around his average. The problem is, though, that was in his first 15 games at the 36% from 3. But in the 32 games since, so that's post-December now, he's only started 9 times, and his three-point percentage dropped from 36% to 27%. That's a 9 percentage point drop-off when it comes to his three-point percentage. And as a guy that the Heat are kind of looking to provide some scoring off the bench, obviously his overall efficiency wasn't good. His three-point efficiency went from bad to completely abysmal. And I can't believe that he'll continue to shoot that bad for the rest of the season. I mean, the sample size is big. That 32-game sample size is obviously quite massive, and it tells a story. But at the same time, Terry Rozier is a career 36% three-point shooter. For a guy who's been in the league, a decade now. So if his career of a decade is 36%, I don't believe he'll keep being the 28% three-point shooter that we've seen since December started. I'm not saying that when he came here, we expected him to be the savior. Obviously, the Heat kind of made they rushed into that trade for Terry Rozier. They never should have gave up a first-round pick for him just to kind of put a Band-Aid on a team that had a lot of other problems. So when he came here, I didn't expect him to be the savior. But at the same time, I think it's fair to not expect him to continue to shoot as bad as he has been. Now, that being said, maybe he won't get the chance because he was sick the last couple of games before the All-Star break. Spo was kind of already starting to take away his minutes a little bit, implement a little bit more of Alec Burks. And I do hope we see that going forward just because Alec Burks has shown that he has been a good player for the Heat this season. He's second on the team in plus-minus behind Jimmy Butler. So technically he's first on the plus-minus now. But Terry Rozier will obviously still get some spot minutes here and there. And if he plays well, he'll continue to get more minutes. And you got to believe he'll be better than what he has been. You have to believe it. I don't see how he could be worse. Maybe he'll be the same, I guess. And the same goes for Jaime Jaquez Jr. Even his drop-off from last season to this season is very noticeable. Last season, he was averaging 11 or 12 points per game. This season, he's down to 9. Last season, he was shooting 49% from the field. This season, he's down to 44% from the field. And his three-point percentage numbers are obviously down also. But what I want to do is I want to go back to his numbers from last year. And obviously, he had the groin injury. And when he came back, he never was really the same. Pre-groin injury, Jaime Jaquez played 39 games. And he was shooting, and he was averaging 14 points per game on 51% field goal percentage and 35% three-point percentage. Post-groin injury, that was 36 games, so relatively the same sample size, and his points per game dropped from 14 to 10. His field goal percentage dropped from 51 to 45, and then his three-point percentage took a massive dip from 35% to 28%. And at the time, as last season kind of wrapped up, we were hoping that dip was due to injuries. We were hoping that, hey, I hope defenses didn't figure out Jaime Jaquez out, and that's why his numbers are down. But as we go into this season, his numbers so far have been pretty similar to what they were post-groin injury last year. And it is starting to look like it's potentially because defenses have kind of figured him out a little bit. But to his credit, though, and to give him benefit of the doubt, he's had a tough season with regards to the position that he's been put in. Obviously, with Jimmy Butler being in and out for the first half of the season, Jimmy, that plays the same position as Jaime, his availability has a direct impact on whether Jaime Jaquez plays or not, and I think that could be very difficult on him. And also, just in general, Jaime is a guy who thrives best when the ball's in his hands, so he can attack, he can get downhill, he can get his post touches to get that footwork that I love. And this team just isn't built for Jaime Jaquez to have the ball a lot because he has to share the court with Rozier. He has to share it with Herro. And there's just, in general, better options than Jaime Jaquez offensively right now. Even Nikola Jovic is taking a big jump this season. And for all those reasons, I don't think Jaime has been put in a role where he can thrive the best. We've seen Spoelstra use him a lot this year as a floor spacer sitting in the corner. And obviously this season, we said he's shooting 29% from three. He should not be a floor spacer. So I don't think they've really optimized Jaime Jaquez. So maybe there's a way they can find a way to use him better, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure because he does have that old school game. And for a 6'6" guy, I'm just not sure that can work in today's NBA. But I do believe that he can get that three-point percentage up a little bit because we heard he was shooting the ball really well in the summer. He did really well practicing against Team USA. I know we've mentioned that a bunch, but Jaime, whether he improves this season or not, he's still only 23 years old, so he will get better as time goes on. I don't think he's a finished product. Now, moving on here, we have Kel'el Ware, and I'm optimistic that we will not see a drop-off to finish the second half of the season. We know last year Jaime Jaquez had a drop-off. The difference is Kel'el Ware is 7-1, and even if he's not getting the ball, if he's not involved offensively, he's a guy that defensively can impact the game night in and night out. He can get rebounds regardless of if he has teammates setting him up or not. Now, I want to note that his numbers since he started playing consistently and then through the end of January is kind of this time frame I have here. So December 21st to January 29th, he was averaging 11 points per game on 58% field goals, 43% from three, and 6 boards a game. Now, from February on, his points per game dropped from 11 to 9. His field goal percentage dropped from 58 to 47, and his three-point percentage dropped from 43 to 8%. That's obviously a huge decrease, although he is taking one less three per game, as it seems like Spoelstra is kind of trying to tell Kel'el Ware to get closer to the basket. But the reason I'm optimistic, even though all these numbers are going down, is because look at his rebounding numbers. His rebounding numbers went from 6 a game to just over 10 per game. That's a 4 rebound per game jump since February. And to me, that's what you're looking at Kel'el Ware to do. You're looking at him to rebound and play defense. So if he's able to do that at an increased level, I don't care if he has the ball as much. They're very clearly not featuring him in offense as much as they were when he first started playing. They were running plays for him. He was taking the most shots on the team. And while I like to see Kel'el Ware kind of get those reps, I don't think the Heat offense is best when Kel'el Ware's taking the most shots on the team. I think it's best when you're getting guys like Tyler and Bam involved. Bam, obviously, who has been better of late. That's what we're going to get into next. And, of course, when that happens, Kel'el Ware's usage with the ball is going to go down. But as long as his rebounding is up and he can keep that efficiency close to 50%, I would like to see him get back to 50%. Since February, that 47% is a little bit too low. But as a guy who's mostly just going to be around the rim, I think he'll get back closer to that 50%. And if you're doing that, getting rebounds and playing defense, there's no reason to not be optimistic, And then my final point here is Bam Adebayo continuing his aggression. Now, the reason that I'm optimistic is because for the first, so Bam Adebayo this year has played, I think, 51 games. Now, in his first 43 games, so majority of the season, Bam Adebayo was averaging 16 points per game, 45% field goals, and 27% from three with 10 boards a game. Now, those numbers weren't great, especially when you didn't have Jimmy Butler most of the time. You were hoping that Bam was going to take a big leap, get over to 20 points per game, and instead you saw a massive decrease from him. But in the last 8 games, from January 27th to February 12th, basically right around when the All-Stars were announced, Bam Adebayo, he got his swagger back. Because in those last 8 games, his points per game jumped from 15 to 23. His field goal percentage jumped from 45 to 55. And then his three-point percentage jumped from 27 to 39. and that's on 3.5 attempts per game. And he's still getting you close to 11 boards per game and 5 assists. So obviously these numbers are incredible. I don't expect Bam Adebayo to keep up these efficiencies or 23, 11, and 5 for the rest of the season. But the point is his aggressiveness has gone way up. He's also averaging 3 more shots per game than he was to start the season. He's now at 16.5 attempts per game. He's getting 5 free throw attempts per game. And I could read all the numbers in the world, but if you've been watching these games, you can see that there has been a clear difference in Bam Adebayo's aggression over the last week. And the reason that I'm optimistic about this going forward is because he's looking like the Bam Adebayo we got accustomed to. This is the Bam Adebayo that we started to see last season, more so towards the beginning of the season, and then he kind of tailed off at the end of the season. So what we've been hoping for is that maybe this season is the opposite. He kind of gets off to the slow start, and then in the second half of the season, he really ramps things up. And he's also a guy that you could tell was being affected by the Jimmy Butler situation because he was getting asked a bunch of questions about it. And obviously, Jimmy was the other guy on the team. And now that Jimmy's officially gone, Bam knows he has to step up. I think he realizes that, and I think he's been doing it. So for all those reasons, I am optimistic that going forward, Bam Adebayo will continue that aggression. And if you got the Tyler Herro we saw for majority of the season being an all-star, and if you're going to continue to get the aggressive Bam Adebayo that we've been accustomed to, really since last season, and if he does keep shooting the ball this well, and you're getting all this young production from or this great production from the young guys, I'm optimistic that the Heat can make a run for the 6th seed. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, that really depends on how you look at the Heat's draft pick situation, but that's a whole topic for a completely different video. But let me know y'all thoughts down below. Let me know if you are optimistic about the squad going forward, and I guess let me know if you even want to make the playoffs, because if you make the playoffs, we don't get our pick. If we miss the playoffs, we actually do get our pick because it is lottery protected. But anyways, I've been talking for way too long in this video, so leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. I appreciate the support, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Look, pull up in the city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.